Before we get started today, I wanted to slow this down for a second, and I wanted to say something very, very clearly to you as a listener of The Lab. I've gotten some pretty consistent feedback over the years about my style as a host, and more recently, I've gotten some feedback that I wanted to share with you. It was from listeners, it was from clients, it was from people that I know pay attention. And so I assume then that it's the type of feedback that you as my listener would have for me as well, because that's kind of how you are. You're sharp, you know what you want, you know what you're looking for. And the feedback has been this, that me as a host, it blends into my other parts of my business and what I do with my podcast consulting company. I'm good at explaining things, and I'm good at teaching principles. And I take pride in that. I'm actually really proud that I've developed this skill that I can take something complex and I can break it down in a simple way and in a clear way that allows you to understand it. But there's also something as a part of that I started to see and that I started getting feedback on, that along the way in this whole effort of mine to be good at educating and training, I pulled myself too far out of the equation. And it wasn't because I wanted to hide or that I felt like I didn't have something valuable to say. And it had nothing to do with me being dishonest or just, masking. It was none of those things. It was quite simply, I don't want this podcast to be about me. I've never wanted it to be about me. Matter of fact, that's one of my biggest pet peeves is those type of podcasts that are so annoyingly self-indulgent. I know that you know exactly what I mean. It's you turn on the show and every story is about the host. They talk about how much struggle they have. Their pain doesn't really have a purpose behind it. It's just because they're dealing with stuff. Their struggle doesn't have any sort of translation or transition or even transformation. It's as if what they're sharing is their trauma, and that alone should be a credential that you should listen to them. And your experience, similar to my experience, when we have those type of shows come up is, I don't know how I fit into this as a listener. Like, this is just you trauma dumping on me about how hard your life is and what you have to deal with. I don't know where I fit in, and I don't even know why this is interesting to me. I didn't ever want to be that to somebody else. I have the ability to be that. I have a ton of stories and things that are relevant to me, but it doesn't mean that they would matter to you. And so in this whole process, I've overcorrected. I never wanted to be even close to that. So it's turned me into the explainer and the educator and the guy that can teach you very, very, deliberately clean principles in a way that you can learn them. But that's kind of it. And that doesn't work when it comes to the connection that I'm trying to build here with you as a listener, and you seeing me as somebody that has a relatable way of helping you to get to the solution that you want, because I've lived it as well. And so today I'm going to do something a little bit different. Today I'm going to walk a line, and I'm going to do it very, very intentionally, where I'm going to use my experience not just as the point, but as a bridge. This is, I have no interest in performing vulnerability in the sharing of my stories. I don't have to prove anything. I don't want you to think that I have to prove anything, because the whole point of this is, beneath the strategy and my desires and ambition for this show, your desire, my desire to continually get better, is that there is a constant question that a lot of people carry that I want to talk about. And it's this: why do I feel right now like I should already have this part figured out? So today, I wanted to talk about that, and I wanted to walk you through a very simple structure, a very simple frame, that is that every decision that we make, every interpretation that we have, and every story that we tell ourselves has only one of two options at the very, very bottom of it as the sponsoring thought or the motivation behind it. In last week's episode, I teased that idea in a very limited way about the concept of a sponsoring thought, that at the bottom of every decision, there's only two choices. You made the choice out of love or out of fear. That's it. There is no third option. And so for today's episode, if you stick with me, it's not going to be just about my story. I am going to share some things that are important about it, but I wanted you to be able to see that for yourself, to see maybe in the stories that I tell, oh yeah, I can see where that motivation is coming from. And in a very relatable way, then you can apply that to your own experience and lead yourself to a place where you are not choosing things out of fear, but you are choosing your best choices in life out of love. So here's the problem that I see in all this, okay? Most people, similar to me in the past and even currently, they think that they're behind. And it's in all of the domains. I have met incredibly high achievers and they are still seeking for something. They haven't made enough money yet. They have to develop those skill sets professionally or in their business. It's just not at where they want it to be. Their relationships, they're good, but we're working through these issues. Everybody seems to be behind from where they think they should be. And let's be real, that's not actually the problem. That's just a symptom of the problem. And the real problem is that most people are living under this invisible clock that they never consciously agreed to, that has a timeline that they didn't say was their own, but yet is forced upon them by culture, by comparison, by other people's expectations that you might adopt for your own. But you've never asked yourself the question, what am I actually doing here? Why am I feeling this way? Where is it coming from? Somewhere along the way in your life, that idea got stalled. Somewhere along the way in your life, that idea got installed. That there was a timeline associated with your achievement, with your development, with how far along you should be. And by this age, whatever age you are listening to this, you should have had it figured out by now. You're already behind. Now, once you recognize that that's your story and that that's been installed as a program in your subconscious and conscious mind, there are a wide open door for fear to step in and to be the thought behind every decision based from that on out. If you feel like you're behind, there is a sense of urgency that is based in fear that will be the governing and motivating principle behind everything that you do. And that fear will start to narrate every experience that you have in all of the domains, in every domain of your life. What's wrong with me? Why am I still struggling with this? This shouldn't be so hard for me still. Nobody else is struggling with this. Everything looks so much easier for them. I don't get it. Why am I in this place? And here's the deeper lie that's underneath all of it. The lie that confusion means failure. If you're experiencing confusion, you're failing. That's a lie. Or that your uncertainty, I don't know, that means that you are incompetent, that you don't have skills or abilities. And the biggest lie that I've experienced, and I know you're experiencing it, is that struggle means that you're not cut out for this. This isn't your path. It's hard now. It just should be easier. I've had this thing my entire life as an entrepreneur. I'll share this with you. When I started my very first podcast back in 2011, I fully did it out of a place of fear. I had just come off of a failed career of 3 or 4 years in global commodities. I had traveled the world. I had spent time in Brazil. I had spent time in Argentina trying to broker these massive transactions between countries and between massive conglomerates of distribution. It was a big deal. The wins, had I been able to get one, would have been astronomical, but I never did. And so when I started my first podcast, I started it because I was I thought I knew business. I thought I knew how all this worked. I thought I knew how to grow money because I had made a little bit of money in real estate, a lot of money actually in real estate before that. And I was in this place I just felt lost. I didn't know what I was doing. So I started a podcast. I wanted an excuse to connect with other people that were successful and do it in a way to where I didn't have to pay them as a coach. I could have something of value to give them as a podcaster. I can promote you to front of my network and have my listeners get access to certain people. And so I concocted in my mind this whole idea of like, well, I'm going to talk to people that have their shit figured out way more than I do. And so I did that. And it opened up opportunities for me that I wasn't ready for. Because of my ability to explain things and just the nature of my person and my presence, I had people reach out to me on a regular basis saying like, you really explain that good. Can you help me with that? And it opened up opportunities for me to actually step in for the first time to being a formal coach, where whether it's a business consultant or life coaching, I was being asked by people for their help. And in the middle of this, I felt the biggest sense of imposter syndrome. I had this great podcast that was doing all these amazing things for me and bringing all this attention and stuff to potential client relationships. Meanwhile, I was struggling financially. I was overweight. I was still coming back from my cancer diagnosis. So my body was in this part of healing. I was estranged from God. I didn't know what I believed when it came to that. And on top of that, my personal relationships, the one with my wife specifically, we were really trying to get to know each other there. She had gone back to work at this time, and I had been the sole provider for many, many years at that point. Like it was a tough time, and I felt small, and I felt like I wasn't worth much, and I was curious why these people wanted my advice. Like, what about me being on this podcast made you trust that I knew what I was dealing with? But yet at the same time, I put aside those limiting beliefs and I thought, okay, so I'm going to give it a shot. There's got to be something here. There's a reason why these people are reaching out to me. And so I started doing that. And I created this 90-day program and this whole thing. And I was actually actively coaching people. And the entire time, I felt like I was a stranger in the room. I had these skill sets and this ability to discern and to connect and to I've been very emotionally intelligent for most of my life, and I would have these moments, empathetic moments even, and I could help somebody transition, but at the end of it, I was just like, man, I need that for me. I was legitimately coming from a place of like, I felt unworthy of the help I was offering, while at the same time, the people to whom I was helping were really grateful and were so gracious and thankful, so much so that I had to start raising my prices because I had this opportunity that if I didn't, I was going to be making almost no money and so busy I couldn't handle it. So just almost as a way to prove that I was good at it, I flippantly just started raising my prices thinking nobody would pay for it. Why would they pay that higher price? And they did. And that actually further created this feeling of like, wow, man, I'm way behind. I was good at coaching. I started to understand this about myself, but I was really bad at the business of coaching. And fast forward to all these years later, that was 12 years ago when that started. I've made millions of dollars. I've had really incredible things happen to me in my life. I took up the hobby that turned into a payable option for me. I won't call it a career, but it's definitely a very, very fun thing of doing stand-up comedy where I became a headlining comedian. I had other opportunities come up. I was able to buy my dream cars. Like I had all these massive accolades that I was able to achieve. And then I moved to Scottsdale, Arizona 2 years ago, and everything specifically starts to be removed again from my life, putting me in this place where I'm like, man, I thought I had it figured out. I don't. Now, I want you to consider that because I know that I'm not alone in this. I want you to consider being at your pinnacle or what you think is your peak and then falling off of it and then looking back up at what you once thought was your peak and questioning if you actually were that thing or if you were just in some way a delusional form of yourself because you were distracted by having abundance and money and connection and business. The internal conflict on that was crazy. And I recognized that everything that I was doing was based out of fear. I didn't want to lose the thing that I thought I had, even though I didn't really feel like I had it. It's such a funny place to look back at. And even in this point right now, it's like I'm in this interesting space right now. My skill sets and my ability to coach people and to guide and to consult and to lead has never been stronger and never been more valuable. The clients that I work with right now experience transformation in a way that's way quicker than it's ever been. However, at the same time, I'm rebuilding my exposure as somebody that does that for people because of the shifting of the market and how things have changed for me since I moved to Scottsdale. Now, here's why that matters. It's because whether it's my story or your story, being early to the game, it doesn't make you any better or any worse than anybody else. And being late to the game doesn't mean that you did it wrong or that you're broken. Now, let's talk about what happens when you don't address these things for yourself, because this is a problem. The problem is that we consistently live with this feeling that we should have had this figured out by now. I don't like where I'm at. I shouldn't be dealing with this right now. I'm too old to still be dealing with this. I've had too many opportunities to have failed this many times, whatever it is. Every single person experiences that. I currently battle with that feeling right now. I've shared with you since I turned 50 years old that I've had this tweak in my mindset where I'm like, I don't like this now. I don't feel the same level of patience for myself because of my age. And so my internal work that I get to do is about battling and suppressing that as a fear-based thought and embracing all of the other things that I shared, that there's no clock on this. I'm not failing because I had those feelings. I'm just experiencing something different than I like. So I get to address that. But the fear of all that is what is the constant, and it doesn't stay theoretical. What I mean is it's not in a box. Like, it starts to leak. The fear will leak into other parts of your life. It will leak into your decision-making. It will leak into your relationships. It will leak into how you see yourself. And when you stop making your decisions based off of what you want and being in alignment with what you want, and you start making them based on avoiding something, avoiding the loss that could come, avoiding the regret that you don't want to have to deal with, when you're in that place, when you hesitate longer than you should, when you second guess your instincts that are actually proven sound instincts, when you overlook things that don't matter and you avoid the ones that do, overwork the things that don't matter and avoid the ones that do, I want to make sure something's very clear. That's not because you're lazy or you're incapable. It's because your fear is the one steering the ship. Your fear is telling you that one wrong move would destroy the entire story that you've written about your success, your failure, what you can achieve, what you're worthy of, all of it. I've experienced that a lot. I've experienced a moment where my delayed response caused a massive issue for me. And I'm reluctant to share this because I recognize that it could come off as bragging or, I don't know, me just trying to flex in some performative way. And it's not that at all. It's a very real example of what I'm talking about. For the longest time, I wanted a G63 AMG. And the place that I bought my Ferrari had one. And it was a year later, and I went in there and I saw it and we drove it and it was great. And the terms of being able to purchase that were a little bit outside of what I felt comfortable with. And so I didn't do it. I didn't take action. The sales guy kept in contact with me and we started talking about some things, and he presented a different option to me for a car that I liked just as much. It just wasn't an SUV. It was another sports car. And when we got into the negotiating of everything, he presented some terms to me that were really, really close to what the wagon could have been, but they were easier to palate. And I had this moment where I just said, this isn't what I want. I am using fear in my mind to avoid the thing that I actually want. Like I had this kind of epiphany. And I told the sales guy as much. I'm like, you know what, man, I don't want that car. We're just sidestepping the real issue. I really want the wagon. And the terms to which you guys gave and the price was outside of where I was comfortable. And that's what the choice is. And the sales guy said then, well, what would work for you? And I presented to him an idea that I thought was outlandish and almost kind of lowballish. And he took a moment and he goes, great, let's do it. We can make that work. I had spent months avoiding what I really wanted because in my mind, I had decided based out of fear that I wasn't able to get it. So much so that I was trying to allow myself to get something different. And in the pursuit of the different, I got exposed for why didn't you just do the thing you wanted in the first place? Why didn't you say the thing that you needed to say in the first place? Why didn't you just shoot your shot. As they say, go for the no. I wasted 4 months of having what I wanted, not because I couldn't afford it, not because I couldn't make it work, but because I didn't want to, and I was disqualifying myself based out of fear. Now, again, I know that's kind of an egregious example, like really, bro, like an expensive luxury SUV is the way that you're going to describe this. Yes, because me in that car is connected to you and some other choice. There's some other choice that you're unwilling to make based out of fear, when if you were just really honest with yourself about what the real issues are, you could figure out a solution that would actually allow you to get it. That's the part nobody wants to admit. I was comparing those two things, and I was holding up on a pedestal the thing that I wanted. I was making what I wanted out of reach when it wasn't. And that is because fear loves to compare things. Fear will convince you that everyone else, every other situation it has clarity and it's got the momentum you want, and that you don't get to experience that you're the only one that's unsure. Everybody else has their lives figured out, and you're the only one that's limping along in this way. So you take your own internal chaos and you compare that to somebody's curated, perfect outcome. Their highlight reel gets compared to your internal chaos. And that's when you then judge yourself. You think, I can't actually get what I want. You think you're broken. You think you're taking too long. You think it's not going to work out. Now, these aren't thoughts that permeate. They're like little darts. They just come in and it pops in and it affects the way that you process things. You lean back in to that fear. And that's actually how the most capable people stall and slow down getting what they want. Not because they lack the talent or the ability to do it, but because that fear convinces them that they've already missed their moment. It's too late. I can't get it. I had decided I can't get that car that I want. I'm going to have to entertain this stuff. And thankfully, that example applies to you right now. I guarantee there's a part of your life where you've decided you can't have the thing that you actually want. And the only reason is because you can't understand the how. And instead of being caught up in that and the fear of that misunderstanding, you get to look at it differently. Because if you're not careful, that will become your identity. Never getting what you want will be a part of how you see yourself. Just how I am. I guess I'm not meant for more. This is as good as it's going to get. These are replayable things that have been in my mind, and I know they've been in your mind. And do they help you? No. And you're not being humble by having that conversation with yourself. You're talking to your fear. And your fear is really, really wily. Your fear is trying to convince you that that's the prudent thing to do. That's the wise thing to do. Oh, you're being crazy and irrational and childish doing it this other way. You're not acting with responsibility when you do it this way. Fear is a really, really good marketer. It will market back to you realism as a way to get you to consistently give in to your fear. Now, that's an issue, clearly. And that's an issue that gets worse the more that you don't address it. The more that you don't snap out of that and think, why can't I choose something out of love instead? Why can't I make a choice towards what I want with a feelingness of hope? Why can't I give myself the grace to think it doesn't matter how long this is taking, I'm not done yet? Well, the reason why is because it takes some internal adjustments to be able to do that. And I want to make sure that I'm clear with you about something. I cannot solve this problem for you on this podcast. I can't solve my own problems on a podcast. Anyone that tells you that is either lying to you or they are selling you a fantasy to try to get you into something that won't help you. But I can offer you something that's different as a way to relate to what's happening to you. So I want you to start asking a different question. So stop asking, why am I behind? This is taking too long. But I want you to ask yourself, what is the sponsoring thought behind this right now? Because when you get honest, you'll be able to discern. Because if it's fear, it will say things to you like you should already be there. You're running out of time. Don't screw this up. Like it will have that dialogue will come from fear as the motivator behind your decisions. Love is very different though. Love says, this is okay because you're doing it right. Love says your capacity continues to grow. It will not expire. And you are using that every moment. And love will also remind you of this, that clarity is a mechanism of motion. Clarity isn't because you're certain about it. Clarity is because you're in the direction of it. It's not soft or passive. Love is that willingness to stop attacking yourself and to tell yourself the actual truth. I have so many of those stories where I noticed that my fear was my sponsoring thought. And I shifted it up and I chose love instead. I'll give this as an example. Some of the most impactful training that I've ever invested into my own mind and mindset has been when I started learning the workings and effect of neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. And I was introduced to a master of NLP whose name is William Lamb. He owns a company and a training facility called Upgrade. And Upgrade is very expensive when you look at it as a fee. It's really cheap when you look at it as an investment. I was looking at this close to 6-figure price tag to invest for myself and my wife into years of this programming that would allow me to remove limiting beliefs, that would allow me to get over the hump, that would allow me to achieve at a level I'd never considered, giving me permission to dream in a different way than I'd allowed. And at first, I was racked in fear. I didn't want to pay it. I was scared about what it could be. And in the middle of that whole process, thankfully, I had this shift where I legitimately had the phrase in my mind come up, well, what if it works out? What if it works out was something I had never allowed myself to feel or think up until that point? I was always the analyst that was trying to hedge against making sure that it didn't fail. I hadn't allowed myself to ruminate towards the positive. But in this situation, I did. And it ended up being the thing that pushed me over the hump. And I am so thankful that I did, because of all of the challenges and everything that I've explained, even on this episode, future episodes, and past ones, I would be in such a way worse place had I not invested in that and the things I learned and grew and the things that I achieved and experienced in my life because of it. I would never have allowed myself the permission to buy my dream car had I not made that investment. I never would have seen myself in a way that saw me legitimately as a powerhouse force in both the coaching space and in the podcasting space. I was always, before that, feeling a destiny towards mediocrity. And this changed that. But that moment where it all shifted, where I allowed myself to think and ask, what if it works out? Game changer for me. And it has led me down the path that I'm on now. You know, one of the biggest changes that I made as an extension of that training and learning how to be better at coaching that way and learning mental programming and behavioral science. I understand that shame cannot be used as a motivational tool if you're going to teach out of love. So I applied that to myself. I do my best to check myself. Anytime I start to feel shame come in for my decisions, the things that I'm slow with, the things I'm struggling with, I don't beat myself up on that. I just ask myself a simple question. I go, well, where are you not keeping your word? And it's non-emotional. And I always see the end of the line. When I ask myself, where am I not keeping my word? Where am I not doing the things that I'm saying I need to do in the time frame to which I've agreed to? I see it differently, and the fear goes away. And now I have this non-emotional path of task-oriented action towards the thing that I want. And as I shared, direction is how you get clarity. So things become clearer. It was beautiful because even though I've shared some things here that I still struggle with this stuff, generally speaking, I'm far better off than I have been in a long time. In spite of the rebuild of my business, in spite of the needing to get the exposure for my skills and abilities to help other people out there differently, I personally am at a place of strength that I'm really grateful for. And it's made my decisions get cleaner. I'm not perfect and I'm not magical about everything. They're just cleaner. Like when I choose something, I know exactly why I'm choosing it, which makes it less frantic, less reactive. It's more honest. And that's the work. That's the work for you. When you can be in that place where you can accept what is the thing you're not doing, where are you not keeping your word, and you can see how that springs into the motivations of your decisions as being either fear or love, that whole scenario, that's where the work is. That's the internal work that is referenced when you get into self-development. The internal work is second-guessing every truth you thought was true and telling yourself the actual truth and allowing yourself to see your brilliance outside of the metrics of worldly success. When you start measuring things different for yourself, things change for you. And that actually creates the bedrock foundation that would allow you then to experience the heft and weight of a truly incredible life. So your sponsoring thought of either love or fear ripples north towards every bit of beauty and love that you get to experience in your life. And when you're giving fear the reins, well, you get what you get. So as we wrap this up, something I want to do. I want you to consider one decision that you've been circling with. I've been talking a lot about delayed decisions in the last couple episodes and things you need to do. So whether it's one conversation that you keep postponing, or there's a move that you keep overthinking that you're not doing, or maybe there's just some sort of thing that's true for you that you just keep negotiating with and you need to stop negotiating with because the truth of it's not going to ever change. I want you to pause and ask, is that decision being guided by love or fear? Is it being sponsored by love or fear? And the answer to that question will change the perspective to which you look at those things to which you've been circling and been unwilling to choose. Now, if you want help doing that, and not in a guru type way or a hype way, that's what I do. It's coaching. It's magnetic voice work. It's authentic expression. It's helping you get aligned so the way that you think, you feel, and what you do are all in a straight line. They're all there. Not so that you can be turned into somebody else, but to help you to stop being at war with yourself. I'd love to have a conversation about that with you. I have the lab, which is my group, which you could be a part of, or I also have my one-on-one coaching, which is far more impactful, but it does have a higher investment. You are not late to the game of the success of your life. You're just asked to start choosing a different sponsor. Now, as I wrap this up, I want to remind you that fear will always make things sound more urgent than they are. Fear yells and it rushes at you. It demands that you have certainty before you make your decisions, while love doesn't do it that way. Love sounds steady. Doesn't rush you, it holds you. It doesn't threaten you. It's an invitation that brings you toward what's best for you. And the more often that you choose one over the other, the easier it is to make that choice again and again, which you've experienced because most likely you've chosen fear far too many times. And it's easy to continue to choose fear. So now I issue that call to action that I want you to choose love. I want you to choose the motivation towards your best to be something that softens you and that makes you cleaner and makes you more certain of your own worth. That's what choosing love will do. My friends, I think I'm just going to let this episode be what it is. Ask yourself those questions. Go back and re-listen to this if you need to, as I describe those different ways of making sure you are choosing things out of love and not out of fear. And also to notice the patterns to which you put in yourself, that put in your own way, that slow it all down for the sake of distraction. You've been listening to The Lab. I'm your host, Bryce Prescott. And like I always say, until next time, take it a day at a time. I'll see you.